Okay, it's 4 o'clock. Quorum is present. Mr. Atherton will not be joining us today. So the March 23rd meeting of the Board of Health is now officially open. Are there any comments from the audience on any issue or item that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to just an announcement reminding everyone that this is will be recorded, audio and visually. The minutes of February 16th, I have one small comment on page 3. The first time it says McNabb, a logical way to proceed is do mandate. Should it is to mandate, not do. It's minor, but it shouldn't that be two?
You're exactly right. So
Okay.
change duty to two.
And I noticed I reminded myself when we looked at the beginning, at the end, we were going to talk about food trucks this time. At some point, we're going to do it next time or this time?
Next meeting.
Next week?
Next week. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to get a handle on that before we get into the summer and it gets crazy. Are there any comments or additions on the minutes?
Nope.
Hearing none, those minutes are approved by unanimous consent with that one minor
To do.
We have an ACO application for 343 Nantucket Road.
Yep. Same straightforward ACO application, technical failure, looking to connect in, waiting to sewer.
Fine.
No.
Any comments from the board? Any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the ACO application for 343 Nantucket Road, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye, it's approved. And I understand that, what? Yeah, I'll sign that. Well, I can. Yep. Yep. Okay, we have the loan septic to sewer.
Yes, same thing. They're looking for a betterment loan to connect the septic to sewer.
So this is a betterment loan on ACO.
Exactly. We don't have the paperwork here today. We didn't get the amortization table printed out, but we should be able to have it for signatures next week.
Next.
Week. So it will be, if we approve
okay.
it today,
Yeah, okay.
we can have it just signed.
Any comments?
Nope.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the septic loan for 76A Old South Road, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye, that's approved. The 11 Village Way and the 9 Dukes Road, I understand, has been withdrawn.
Yes, 11 Village Way has been withdrawn by the applicant. They want to come back at a later date with a redesign.
Fine.
The loan request for 9 Dukes Road, I believe, has been withdrawn as well.
Okay.
And then for the condemnation hearing, they actually came with us with a connection to sewer permit and a signed contract. So the condemnation hearing, we can actually just...
It doesn't, it's moot point.
It's a moot point. If the connection is not done by May, we can put it back onto the agenda.
Okay, that's fine. Any objections to that? Oh, we're moving greatly. Jeff.
Yes, sorry, I'm having a little technical trouble. The computer's running slow.
Mine always runs slow. I guess the purpose of this is that we want an understanding of this famous $40,000.
Yes. There's a $40,000 line item that Jeffrey is going to be getting in his department next fiscal year, and Jeff would like to go over that with us to see exactly where
What it
we can
is,
actually
because
use
there's
that
been a
money.
lot of
Question.
questions about what that is
Yes.
and what it's going to accomplish, so we would love to know.
I would love to tell you. So I guess I can go without one, I guess, if it's helpful for everybody. Let's come around again. Jeff Carlson, the Natural Resources.
You can pull it over and bring it down to the chair.
So the computer's not really working over well for me here. I got all. So still thinking. So I guess I'll just kind of run through it without graphics, and I apologize that you guys won't get to see pretty pictures of the landfill and the watershed and all of those things. Again, for everyone that doesn't remember, Jeff Carlson, the Natural Resources Coordinator for the town of Nantucket. What we're really looking at doing here in the famous $40,000 that Roberto so kindly entered is in exploring the Nantucket Harbor, Hither Creek, Long Pond, Nantucket Ditch watershed. We've been really trying to narrow down where our nutrient loads are coming from and how to better effectively manage those loads in place of the sewer project going forward in the short term here. So what this $40,000 is really evaluating is the nutrient loading as it relates to the landfill and trying to narrow in on potential areas of the landfill to kind of reprioritize being capped, being worked on, being mined. And the graphic would be really nice to show. So what we're doing is we are capitalizing on the existing series of groundwater wells at the landfill. There's 8 groundwater wells that are active that kind of encircle the landfill on all sides, with kind of the control well number 1 being on the opposite side of the pond of the landfill for us to kind of work from. So we'll be working with SMAST, and we're essentially running our nutrient program on those groundwater wells, really focusing on the nitrogen contribution from the landfills through those wells to try to get a better idea of how the groundwater is moving through the landfill and where it's picking up different nutrients from. There's been some want and some interest in continuing that, and also trying to narrow in on any sort of pathogens or other issues that may be coming from the landfill as well as part of this. But right now, our testing is really focusing specifically on the nutrient movement through the landfill and getting into Long Pond. And I think we really feel like if we can get a better handle on how that's working on the landfill, we can better target our efforts to try to remove that load. And for those who don't remember, the landfill from that system in its entirety makes up about 20 to 25% of the controllable load within that watershed. So the controllable load is the aspects that we have control over. So wastewater, fertilizers, landfills, stormwater, things that we can manage. About a quarter of this watershed is made up of the landfill. So this is kind of our look more specifically in targeting the landfill for how nutrients are working. So that's really what the $40,000 is going for. That's the projected number that we have. We do feel that we can capture some savings because there's a little bit of the work that our department and Caitlin in our office has already done, or some of our predecessors, and some of the field work is stuff that we can do in place of SMAS. We're able to physically take those samples ourselves. So there may be some money saved in there, which may give us the ability to do some additional testing for additional parameters, and that's kind of our hope to do. But when this first came and we first put it towards the budget, it was really focused at simply nutrient management for the pond and for the landfill. I'm happy to answer any questions too.
Well, I would say, well, so what?
Well-
I mean, you're going to find there's nitrogen in various.
Correct.
So what are we going to do about it?
Well, that's the thing is the landfill's a pretty big property, and the way the wells are set up and the way they ring the perimeter, there are areas of the landfill that are being mined and extracted ahead of others. And if there are areas where we're seeing nutrient leaching coming out of that faster or in advance, we can reprioritize our areas to be mined and capped as part of that program to take those areas that are of greatest concentration and greatest flow out of that system first. It gives us a better way to target our work at the landfill to try to deal with nutrients leaving the landfill instead of the order that we're going now, and that's just kind of, by priority set by waste options.
I'm still not completely convinced that this is going to accomplish anything, because what's going to happen is we're going to find nitrogen all over the place. And
Oh, absolutely.
even the places where it's lower than others, it's probably too high. Yes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's any anticipation that we're going to find ground wells that don't have a
Right.
elevated concentration of nitrogen. Again, this is really part of the overall program for controlling the controllable load of nitrogen for the watershed system. And while we're looking at, comprehensive management tools for Nantucket, like innovative alternative systems, I know you guys have been asked and have been exploring the possibility of tight tanks or package treatment or sewage systems. For that area, for looking at stormwater, the landfill being a quarter of the load that's going into the system as a whole is something for us, outside of mining it and removing it and capping it, there's really no more you can do with it. The landfill isn't magically going to go away tomorrow. This just gives us a better target at where we need to be working first.
Right, well,
And it's part of a larger management scheme for Nantucket as a whole. I mean, there's no magic bullet that one of these things goes away and our systems are all of a sudden all consistently below our TMDLs and no longer impaired or degraded. We have to do a mix of all of the things to get there. And this is something that was specifically asked to be looked at by a lot of the public.
Right.
And this is something that we're trying to improve how we're running this operation.
I'm not getting it at you personally. I believe you're absolutely right that it's a comprehensive program of all those things. I'm just not convinced that this is going to actually make a big difference. But that's my opinion.
Well,
I'd like to see numbers. And
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to get at, is right now the load from the landfill is something that's been kind of modeled through SMAST and monitored, that this is going to be a chance for us to get that really hard data at the front end, and then as we continue monitoring some of these wells, we'll know if we're seeing improvements from the landfill and what those improvements are that are getting into Long Pond. So
Well,
it's
okay,
a way for us to try.
I know. Just my other point is that if it's 25% or if it's 40%, it probably doesn't really matter, because whatever it is, it's too much. So I'm not convinced this is going to help that much, but we will pass on to someone who has another question.
Yeah, wasn't there talk of additional peer review as well? Not just one company doing it?
Well, yeah, right. So we kind of wanted like a third party. Why SMAS? He was the architect of the whole thing, and I think I had somebody look at those water well reports, and they grossly misjudged the loading coming from the landfill.
So with any of this, the $40,000 was simply a scope that was put together, and SMAS responded to that scope, but it will have to go through regular procurement. So it's up for really anyone that wants to bid on that project.
Well, what's the procurement cutoff right now? Is that 50,000? Isn't it?
What's that?
I think it's 20.
Yeah.
Well, under the state contract requirement is 50.
50.
Our local town charter is 10. So we're still required to put it out by our local town charter for procurement, and we'll see who bids. I mean, I know for our other projects that we've been looking at in that area, as far as improving the culverts and Nantucket Ditch, and looking at those things, I mean, we've had a number of respondents for quotes and kind of scopes on that, including, Woodard and Curran, CDM, Horsley Witten. So I think it'll be open to any of those groups that want to respond, but for us to at least develop a budget number, we had to have at least a guess
Right. Well,
where we were going to be started
Do
from.
you have a written thing of what the scope of the work is? I mean, we haven't seen it.
Certainly, I mean, we can share that around. I mean, I know
It is-
that came into the town administration office. So
There's one thing I think you need to pay attention to is the compost part of the whole operation and what that does to our natural soil out there, which
no, absolutely. I mean,
it's, there's high levels of manganese, and they haven't even tested for radiation.
yeah, that's definitely a concern, and it's something that we've been working on getting better analysis of, not only the compost, but also any of the sludge component that comes from the wastewater treatment facility out there first to try to get an analysis of what we're putting out there and what we're mixing together, and then what the resultants are, to get that information out and to get that tested consistently. And I think there is a big concern for, what's coming out of the digester, what's being put in the compost, what's sitting there the longest. And I think there's still a real concern of, what's still in the hill and what's getting out. And I think that's what some of the groundwater testing is, to find out what really is getting out from there and where it's getting out from. Again, so if there's management that we can do to move the compost, do things to change how they're managing the site, that's an option that we have to try to minimize those inputs going in.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important to kind of look at with this project is the biggest complaint that we were receiving after the sewers got voted down was that there was a lack of transparency over some of the work that we had done with the landfill. I think that ultimately the work that Jeff is doing might actually be a major part of that critical success that we need for the sewer project. And if they're checking these wells, we might be able to just explain to them that well D10 versus well D20 might actually be different, and we've been mining the wrong section, the wrong well. That sort of stuff. It's that transparency thing that I think might give us an advantage going forward.
Any other questions? I mean, my comments are not at you personally.
No, I understand that.
I just believe that we haven't really attacked the issue. We're just kind of going around the periphery of it. I mean, I once joked that we should, as the Board of Health, condemn the landfill, but I was told that I couldn't do that. That it's under the state has the authority. I mean, how often does the state inspect the landfill, and what's the state's opinion of the landfill?
That's an excellent question, and I'll be honest, I do not know the answer to that question.
Really, to be absolutely fair to the people in the town of Nantucket, it's whenever the state feels like it. They don't get here often. It's usually when it usually follows a complaint. So I think one of the things that we've had conversations about getting in contact with DEP and having them come and do an audit, because the last time they looked, we haven't heard.
Well, that would seem to me a very logical thing to do, because there's a lot of controversy about the data and who presented it and who did it and blah, 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 blah. And in fact, again, I think we're just skirting around the issue. I mean, you made a very good point that we always need more information, more data, to a point. I mean, you can...
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
but it would be interesting if, in fact, what the state's opinion of the landfill was, in fact, were we violating environmental laws, which I'm sure we are.
It's definitely possible.
I mean, can we ask the state? Can the Board of Health formally ask the state, or do we have to do it through you two gentlemen?
No, the Board of Health can formally ask, and us through your agent get in contact with them.
Does anyone have an objection to having the state inspect?
I have no objection at all. None. Go ahead. I think it's a good idea.
So, could I have a formal motion that the Board of Health will ask the Health Department to ask the state to do an audit of the system?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. We say aye.
Aye.
So the
Aye.
Board of Health has formally adopted a position that we would like the state to audit the landfill. If you could do whatever one has to do that.
No, and that as a part of the discussion for the April meeting as well, so that we can come back and give a report on that.
Yes, please let us know what they say, because
Jeff, is there any specific time that the scope of the work and the proposal would be out? Is that...
Yeah, certainly we can release the scope of the work. Again, the funding is still pending town meeting approval, so we're kind of on hold until we have money to pay for whatever scope gets put forward. And again, I think that scope is definitely open to some refinement and some tweaking. We are just trying to get a general idea of what doing our normal suite of nutrient analysis on those series of 8 groundwater wells for the landfill would be, just to give us something to target at. I hate to guesstimate, because I always guesstimate what that number is wrong, and I hate to come back and ask
Well,
for more money.
We haven't, the Silent has not done well in estimating costs recently.
No, that's why I would rather ask when I get the chance what I think it may be, and then get a firm number to try to work within. And then again, at least our department, we always try to figure out ways that we can do work in kind to help lower the cost as we go.
You know,
How
I think
long will
there,
it take to do it?
The groundwater testing, sir? I mean, we would simply do the regular testing. Would probably take, depending on the number of times per month we are doing it, if we're doing it twice per month, probably be a day per month to collect the actual samples. Most of the wells have been recovered already, so we know where all of them are and are accessible for the most part. There's a couple that need some cleaning up. And then the processing that we send off for, we ask to try to get the raw data back from the testing from whoever we test from, whether it's SMAST or another third-party company. We try to get that raw data back for at least us to start looking at within the month. Sometimes it's two, depending on the backlog of testing. Summer's a little bit longer because there's a lot of communities using a very small number of labs within the Commonwealth that qualify as labs to do this water testing.
I think there's some, private organizations out there that would be willing to chip in, to defray the town's costs.
Absolutely. I think that's something that our department's got a pretty small budget that we always are more than happy to entertain people wanting to chip in and participate. Frankly, it's information we're gathering for the public to use, and that's why all of our contracts and our last contract, even for our regular estuary testing program, we've required that we don't get final reports. We get final reports, but with that, and it's a monthly update, we always get back just the raw, unprocessed data for us to use, and we also get that out. So if there are other researchers or other peer reviewers that want to get a hold of it and use it, that they have it for their use as well. So there's more transparency and more ability to, frankly, check everyone's work as it's going, and that's something that we've only added in over the last 2 years of that system line, so all of the harbors and Great Ponds testing contract.
I don't know if you were here last meeting, but we have an implementation date for the new regulations in Nantucket, so we kind of don't want to water samples and testing and data. We'd like to get as soon as possible, so that.
Absolutely, and I think really the goal of all of these, I mean, the water sampling on the water bodies themselves is something that's been going on since the mid-'90s by the town. That this was just identified really as an information gap that we had on the nutrients coming from that, and it's something that I think, for relatively, it sounds like a lot of money to say $40,000, but in the grand scheme of managing water, $40,000 is pretty short money to bridge a gap and answer a lot of questions and hopefully get everyone focused on what management needs are really necessary.
Right.
Anything else from the board? Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, my presentation didn't work.
That's quite all right.
I'm going to try to load up the regulations so that we can
Yes,
follow.
there was a time where we didn't have all that wonderful audio-visual. We all seem to survive. All right, so he's getting the audio-visual of the regulation. We're going to next reopen the public hearing on Regulation 78. As you recall, at the last meeting we discussed it. I do want to make something very clear to clear up a misconception that a couple people have told me, that the analysis that was done was just done by an intern and therefore it was not valid or something. The intern entered the data into a spreadsheet. I mean, Roberto made the analysis. That's all the intern did. He did not make an analysis, despite what people are telling me. I just want that clear. How are we doing?
Very well.
Okay. So at the last meeting, at the last hearing, we extended the hearing because we listened to a lot of people. And the present revised regulation essentially says that water wells will be tested essentially every other year. And then if there's a failure, some corrective action must be applied. And it can be connecting to town water, it can be an osmosis system, it can be something. And then it's well tested again. And there was something in that first paragraph that wasn't quite right. And then
Yes.
we'll get this done, then we'll open the hearing.
So there were three. Sorry. Lean over you again. There were three suggestions that were brought up this week for the regulation that are all very logical. The first one is this one in red that says that cannot be remedied by filtration or other means. So it's in order to put in that section that says you're allowed to remedy your well through a filtration system, through an osmosis system, and you're not completely required to connect to town water unless it cannot be remedied at all. So that was the first suggestion. The second one is triple these things and break me back. The second suggestion is actually here in section A, where it says all potable water wells will have no more exceedances shall within 90 days. It was brought to my attention that in the next section we give people 6 months to connect if you can't fix. So in order to make it consistent, why don't we make it all 6 months? It's also definitely a logical request. And then the very last one is actually not on this edit yet.
Can you back that sheet up? You got one, back that down. We're with the first change you made. Go back up. For some reason, you have my comment underlined in red.
Spelling.
Oh, that's just
Oh,
Yes.
just spelling
Yeah.
check? Okay, fine, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's
They
just
don't
spelling.
understand.
It's the
the
whole
in-
island, it's
they-
not
yeah.
just my comment.
I don't get the Indian names.
So in this case, the repair would be within 6 months of notification of exceedance, which we thought was very logical. And then the one thing that was brought up was that we had nothing on here that would prevent people to install a potable water well on a vacant property. So a suggestion was that maybe add section D that says no new potable water well construction shall be allowed when town water is abutting and available. You can always install an irrigation well. That would always be allowed. This is just for the potable water section. So there would be no major hardship of having to disconnect the water well. It would just say that if it's there and you're doing new construction, a brand new construction, not repair or any CO repair, that you would just connect to town water rather than install a potable water well. That was that last suggestion, and that one I want to definitely leave to the board. The staff thinks it's a good idea, but it's definitely
All right.
the board's decision.
All right, so the public hearing is now open. If you have comments on the revised Regulation 78, you're welcome to give them. Please come forward, identify yourself, and
Paul Jensen, has anybody talked to the water company about if they'll have the capacity to handle all this public? If it's island-wide and I know we have water issues with when we have dry
Well-
season, they can't provide water.
it would only be in the case of a failure.
Right.
And then you wouldn't necessarily have to hook up town water. You could do another alternative
Yeah,
method.
you can do filters, but still, I think we should have a comment. You should get a comment before you do this.
We
from
have
the water
discussed
company.
this with the water company.
Yes, the water company was here at the last open hearing, and the Board of Water Commissioners did endorse this regulation.
Any other
The-
comments? Charles?
Thank you to the chair and members of the Board of Health. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again on this issue and for the redrafting that has been done by the Health Department. Just for the record, I'd like to repeat a comment that I made at the February 16th hearing that in the future I would hope that the Board of Health, when they're considering such far-reaching regulations, would consider them during the summer months when seasonal residents have the opportunity to become informed and ask questions and provide input. But I do want to say that the revision to to this regulation is a great improvement over the original. In large measure, it balances what the Board of Health had intended to do by assuring that the public is not consuming water that's contaminated. It balances that concern with the financial interests, to be frank, of many homeowners who would otherwise, under the original regulation, be required to connect to town water regardless of whether or not their well was contaminated. So this is a great improvement. I shared the original draft, not this one, which I've just seen, but the original draft with our board. I represent the Nantucket Residents Association, and our board agreed that we should support this revised regulation. And I certainly agree with the two additional amendments, the first two amendments that have been made, but I haven't fully digested the third one. And if I heard it correctly, I think what we're saying is that if somebody wants to develop a buildable lot that is adjacent to town water, that they have to connect to town water rather than drilling a well. And I would like to see the public have the flexibility to drill a well if that's what they want to do. If it turns out that it's adequate, that the water is pure, and it's less expensive to drill the well than to connect to town water, they ought to have that opportunity. But the other two suggestions I would fully support. I'd be happy to attempt to respond to any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comment about summer residents, and we'll work on that in the future.
Thank you.
And Charlie,
Yeah.
and Charlie, there was a request from the minutes taker that you state your name for the record.
Oh, sorry, Charles Stott, Nantucket Residents Association.
Right. I'm sorry, I must have done something wrong. Okay, please.
Bill Greeter, Nantucket Conservation Association. I'd like to thank the board, echoing what Charlie said about the tweaking of the draft to address concerns that we heard from not just our members, but folks that don't want to join the membership but still subscribe to the newsletter or whatever. And because they're summer residents, they feel that they're using us as a conduit to the board because we're here. So we echo Charlie's concern that that not just this board, but all the boards in town start to really consider the summer residents. They're getting very vocal about stuff, and we're hearing it. And if we're hearing it eventually, the boards are going to hear it. And this was a great compromise to take the issues that were brought forward to us, passed on to your staff, and it's been tweaked. And we sent that back out to folks, and we didn't hear any. We actually heard, thank you for adding these things in there to make it a more reasonable and doable policy. The only question with this latest one is, as Charlie said, if somebody has the ability to get clean water from a well, it would seem that that's something that they should be able to do. And I'm sure that at some point, you folks will be hearing from that. If somebody runs into that problem, would somebody be able to get a variance on that section or not?
Well, I have two comments. First, we really haven't discussed that last amendment. And two, you can always apply for variance for anything.
Right, I just wanted to state that so we could go back and say that. Right.
But and I don't have the sense of the board on that last amendment yet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Please.
Leslie Forbes, Long Pond Drive. This is just a question. Should a well have an exceedance, and it talks about being able to repair it, can you repair it by digging a deeper well?
I don't think.
Yeah, sometimes a lot of times it's just depending on where that lens is that you're drawing water from. So
All right.
if it means extending the well, if a well driller is willing to do that, that's definitely an option.
All right, thank you. And I know I'm being repetitive, but I'm going to say it is absolutely imperative that the Board of Health have a forum this summer for everybody. The well thing applies to everybody on the island who has water going by them, and this is pretty much unknown. So you have seasonal residents, and you have not a lot of information out there about this. Last year, when the sewers were being talked about, there was a forum that a lot of people, this room was full, to talk about what it meant for people, so people could have question and answers. There were handouts ahead of time. In 2009, when the planning board was changing the zoning in Nantucket, the planning board had hearings. In 2008, I think it was, when the Board of Health was putting a new regulation in Nantucket, that you needed 10,000 square feet for every bedroom. There were plenty of public hearings. Richard Ray came to the Nantucket Residents Associations. He came to the Nantucket Conservation Association. There was lots and lots of outreach with an opportunity for people to understand what was happening. There are not a lot of people here in February and March, and to be fair, I know this is all posted on the website, but most people who live in Western Massachusetts or Connecticut or whatever don't spend their time reading the Nantucket website. They don't even know they don't know what stuff is coming up even to look for it. So I think there's plenty of precedent here that other departments, including your own, have public fora, and in the summertime with lots of notice, ads in the newspaper, and people come. And you're going to have to do that. I think it's imperative for you to do that for both the sewer regulation change and for this new well regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's probably not a bad idea because there's other issues that affect the whole island, and maybe in the summer we'll have a come and question the Board of Health meeting or something. It's a good idea. I like that idea. And I appreciate your comment about summer residents and other people. We have to work on that. Any other questions? Any other comments from the public? Hearing no objections from the board, we will close the public hearing. Comments on the board. We essentially have some additions to what was postponed. Yes.
I have three questions here. Section 7804D, it says, in any area with active erosion, disconnection wells must be removed in its entirety. Now, I've talked to 2 well drivers this week, and if you have a well that's more than 30 or 35 feet, it is going to be impossible to remove the casing of that well out of the ground. All you're going to do is break the PVC somewhere down in the well. I think by removing the pump, cutting the well off and capping it should be sufficient.
Any other comments on that? Nice to
It
have
would cost thousands of dollars to hire a well driver, a well digger to go back there with his equipment,
Right.
trying to pull that thing out.
So if it's capped, it can't be used.
Right, you take the pump out,
Yeah.
you take all the tubing out, you cut the well at ground level, and you cap it.
We've been actually seeing a lot of problems with that. That's been the past practice, and in an area of active erosion like on Sheep Pond Road, we've been seeing as the dunes and everything start receding, those PVC casings become exposed, and then once they end up in the water, they become water hazards below the surface of the water, where we've had situations where Sheila has had to go out and put buoys and markers on where these wells are to avoid boats from getting impaled on these.
But what I'm saying, I go back to this, they said if you hook a well driving rig up and try to suck that pipe up, there's so many lengths that are glued on couplings every 15 to 20 feet, the thing sucks around that PVC and you just snap that pipe and you'll break it. And then you have no chance of getting it out from wherever it's broken down to the bottom of the well. I've talked to 2 well drivers, and I don't.
This section of in an area of active erosion was actually a suggestion made to me by a well driver.
Well, that's funny. I talked to 2 out of 3 of them.
All right.
But that's up to you.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll go over each
Okay.
people's comments.
My second question is 7805B. It says, no well shall be installed, abandoned, without first receiving a well installation or abandonment permit from the health department. Is that simply, is it something that the people are going to have to pay for? Or is it a simple permit that
It's
that'll
the
be?
same permit we've always had.
Okay,
We've always had that thing on the books. It's just now we're codifying it.
okay. And my last question is 7806. It says, the Nantucket Board of Health, at its discretion, may vary the strict application of any provision of these regulations. I'd like to know what that means.
That's a good question.
What that means is when everyone, the same question that Mr. Greeter had right now is, can we vary? The question is, when people apply for a variance, it's saying that, yes, we're allowed to vary this regulation. When
So this
people
is only
request-
This
concerning a
essentially
variance.
determines on the variance.
Okay, it's only, all right, I'm okay.
We're not going to be doing it.
That's good.
All right, so, any other comments? So let's go through the...
Well, can I have one more comment?
Yes.
I agree with Mr. Scott about if someone has buys a brand-new piece of land, he should have the opportunity to be able to drive a well to see if he has a good water.
I don't disagree with that,
Okay.
but let's go through. The first one, we'll vote on the amendments as they're presented. So the first one, that cannot be remedied by filtration or other means in Section A. Do I have a motion to approve that?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that First Amendment is passed to the present one. The next one was, where was that?
It's right here on
Right there.
section A. Right.
6 months instead of 90
Moving
days.
from within
Oh,
90
I got
days
you,
Yeah.
okay.
to 6 months.
Do I have a motion to approve 6 months instead of 90 days?
Motion approved.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in approve of amending that section to 6 months, say aye.
Aye.
That is approved, of that amendment. This is the one of question then.
Right.
That wasn't there before.
No, that one was a suggestion made today. We think it's a logical suggestion, but it's definitely up to the board.
I mean, my concern is the other tweaks were little tweaks. I mean, this is a major addition to something that really hasn't been published to the public. So I actually don't think we can even consider it.
Well, if you talk about it, this is very simple. If you're going to allow people to have a well, to try to fix it and make it work, and someone has a brand-new lot, and he drives a well, if it's bad, it's his loss.
Okay, what's the,
I mean, I think I'm with you with how it is just right now.
yeah, I have concerns with that. So I don't think we can actually, without
That sounds fine.
publication and hearing, and somewhere down the line, we can amend it again.
If it becomes an issue, we can always amend it.
Okay.
I don't think we can discuss it legally, quite frankly.
That-
Okay?
Good. So,
All right, now, are there any other additions?
That was it?
All right, so, we have voted on those 3 amendments. Now we need a motion to approve or disapprove the entire regulation. Motion?
I'd like to motion to approve as those
as
amendments,
the last-
as amended.
As
Right.
amended?
Second?
all right.
Any further discussion? All in favor of Regulation 78 with the minor amendments that were discussed today, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye. The regulation as amended is approved without the D. Okay? Thank you. And I thank the public for their concern. Please. We're not...
The discussion Mr. Cooper had about the disconnecting the well in its entirety, that was his opinion. I didn't hear anything from the rest of the board, so The question would be.
Actually, correct. We did not discuss that. Does Mr. Cooper want to make an amendment about that, or just discuss it?
Well, I'm just telling you, I think if you take the pump and you take the thing out, in most cases, except unless the well is right on the beach. I mean, if a guy's got a well that's 50, 60 feet deep, and the well's bad, no matter what he does, you go down, you go up, you can't make it good. You can't pull that thing out. It'll cost him thousands of dollars to have that casing pull out of the ground. If you pull the pump out, believe me, I've done millions of these wells. You take the thing out, you take the pump out, you cut the thing down to grade, and you cap it.
Well, that's the intent for the ones that are on active erosion. They're basically already on the beach. These have to be.
Oh, you mean if it's on the beach?
Yeah, it's an area of active erosion.
Active erosion.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Oh no, if it's like in Pippin's Way and they want to rip out the well, you can just cap
All right,
that and.
fine.
Okay, so
Or
you
Tom
don't
Nevers.
want to make
No,
another
no,
amendment?
no,
Okay.
it's fine.
Yeah, no, it was just in areas of
Right.
active erosion.
Yeah, thank
the
you.
intent is not to, and I've seen them, is to have these casings flopping around in the wash, which it does. It becomes a hazard.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
and
that's
it's happened.
fine.
I don't
No.
get why those weren't dealt with prior to them getting out to the low water mark and then into the water. You know,
Okay.
there's more than you think.
Anyways, thank you for the comment. So 78 is now approved, and you'll have it for us to sign next week.
Yes, I actually have the signature page here.
I'd rather read the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know I trust you, but
You can
But you
always,
don't trust them.
we will have a copy of the final as voted
don't-
regulation in my office next week.
yeah, I
starting
don't want to
Monday.
be like, if you all remember MASH, where radar would just put papers on the colonel's
It's
desk.
signed.
All right, thank you all. Director's report.
Very nice and quick. This year we've had a significant increase in septic system plan reviews and construction plan reviews. So we've been collecting data on that, and just to put it in perspective, this last calendar year, our intern has been collecting the data from our daily activity reports. This past calendar year, we've done 75 food establishments alone, and well over 1,000 plan reviews for septic and construction compliance this past calendar year. It's been a banner year for Nantucket. So it's definitely something that's going to be, and I'm trying to get my office to analyze a little bit more. I'm going to start with this data that we collect. It might end up starting to drive a little bit more policy. This boom in construction, a significant portion of them are pools. So we might have to definitely start thinking of pool draining regulations, especially considering the same conversation we've been having here. I know it's everyone's concern as well here in Nantucket residents as well, that if people are just draining their pools out into stormwater, right into everything without dechlorinating, that's causing more damage than their own septic system.
Not doing, no.
Especially considering chlorine is a persistent environmental contaminant.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that we're definitely looking into. And then with this well regulation, we didn't set a start date.
Let's go back. So we will open the discussion of Regulation 71. Do I have a suggested start date from staff?
Because otherwise, as voted, it starts tomorrow.
No.
So
I haven't signed it yet. How about, what is this, April 1st? How's April 1st?
at town meeting, we'll announce it.
Any objection to April 1st?
April 1st.
Isn't there something on the town meeting warrant about pools this year?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'd love to know. Is it? No. We're in informal time.
There is an article approved by the planning board and the finance committee
Yeah,
Right.
but we're still not going to deal with, I have a sense
Dechlorination.
this year we're going to be dealing with chlorine. Well, if we have public hearings on it, it'll be in the summer, right?
It'll have to be. One of the things that's been really important, and I've been discussing this actually with Matt Fee in the Selectmen, he also came into a lot of the information, just like Jeff Carlson and myself, that saltwater pools are actually worse for the environment
I've read
than a
that.
regular freshwater pool. So that's a lot of people believe that if they were to put in a saltwater pool, it's better, and it's actually significantly worse. So that's the sort of things that we need to start looking into, considering the amount of work that we've been getting in the office regarding pools. So the Shimo project is moving forward. The Shimo sewer project. We had a talk at the Rotary yesterday, and we also gave the first of a couple of public outreach meetings on Tuesday at Cyrus Pierce. There will be more public outreach scheduled. This one was the first of many, and we're definitely going to do the summer as well, so we can get everyone involved in this. It's been relatively well received. We haven't really heard a lot of complaints. However, the day is still early. We can always get more information out there and more information from people as time goes on. It seems to be going on schedule, on budget, so it's working well. And then lastly, I have not heard back from DMF about another hunting season. I will actually reach out to them again.
Yeah, if we could just have a teleconference.
Yes.
I'd rather, well,
Yes.
I would at least like to ask them about, I'd like to hear again they wouldn't allow sharpshooters and talk about how we could do a proper hunting. I'd love to be on a conference call.
Okay.
Or one, well, we can't have more than 3 on the board or it becomes a meeting, but maybe someone else on the board.
No, that sounds good. Definitely, I can set up that conference call. I think right now they have their hands full with the mobile gear and the squid closure, considering yesterday's meeting, which was very impressive. A lot of people showed up. The town there's a lot of support to have the same amount of equity on Nantucket as Martha's Vineyard has and as the other coastal communities on Massachusetts have.
Why not?
So hopefully the town spoke loud and clear to DMF, and that they will be making what we would consider the right decision. And then going forward, yes, ma'am.
I just say whoever is in on that teleconference, I think it's important that we stress that we are going to be managing whatever may be allowed, because saying give it to us and we hope it works is not the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be in charge of it.
Right.
Okay, will do. And then moving forward, we did not get our CDC intern this year, but we did get a second summer intern from Syracuse University. So she will be starting in late June. So thank you to the Community Association for that help. And we will also have another high school student joining us in the summer to help a little bit with the office. We have a significant amount of work that we have done in the office that we are starting to stretch a little thin on, and we want to make sure that some of the filing and everything gets done correctly. And Anne has been tremendous, and I just don't want to have all the burden be on her in the summer.
Good.
So we'll have 3 interns this summer.
Did you get housing? Did you have
Yes, the intern from Syracuse does have housing, so she will be starting in late June, and the 2 high school interns are Nantucket High School students. So it worked out very well.
She'll be doing TBD?
Yes, she will. Yes, she will. She will be helping us with all the tick-borne disease work, as well as helping me create partnerships around the island with some of the substance abuse and opioid issues here on the island, which is a neglected portion of what the health department should be working on.
Absolutely. It's one of our 4 major issues.
It's one of the 4 major issues. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Roberto? Any issues the board wants to bring up, something for next agendas, questions?
Actually, the Mosquito Control Commission, since we have lost the exemplary leadership of Mr. Stott, we are now down a member on that commission. And we're really, I think, feeling the effects of the transition of Director of DPW. I know we have Chuck as deputy, and there is a new hire.
Rob McNeil.
But the VDCI has not been paid for the work they did in September. They've been unable to get payment out of the finance department, and we really need to be paying attention to. We still have 1 year of our 3-year contract left, but we really need to. If you could give me Chuck's contact information,
I can
as
do that.
well
I
if
have
there's
it.
a personal one for Kara, just so that we can follow up with her on how things were left on her departure.
I don't have Kara's personal information, but I definitely have
I only
Chuck's.
have the old
Do-
DPW,
Yeah.
but Chuck anyways.
How is the vacancy appointed? Who appoints the vacancy?
I guess it's appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
So it's like all the
It's a regular
vacancies they'll be
committee
doing,
appointment, yeah.
like the ones on the Board of Health
Yes,
and the
yeah.
mosquito, okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Public have anything else? Such a small group today. All right, well, hearing nothing, we will look forward to the April meeting where we should have a new member from the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
That will
Drum
be-
roll.
That will be interesting to see who was appointed. Thank you for all coming. The meeting is adjourned without objection.